Hey, it's Christopher, and you're listening to the super fantastic, above average racing spectacular. Hey, everyone, and welcome. Season 2019, race number 2, Atlanta Motor Speedway, Quick Falls of Honor 500, come and gone. Race number 3, coming up this coming weekend. Las Vegas. Any good Las Vegas stories out there? Anything too crazy? Any good stories? 2 events here now. Vegas has expanded to 2 races per season. Playoff race in the fall. This race in March, late February, early March. Most of the times we're in March. Never run in February, but I guess March, first week of March. Started back in '98. Stranglehold Rush Fenway, back just known as Rush at the time, had on the track. So that's some memorable events. So here we are. Quick Falls of Honor 500. Brad Keselowski picks up win number 1 in 2019. This is his second career win in Atlanta. 2017 winner, 2019 winner here. All-time wins leader for Penske. Battles through a stomach bug or whatever he was going through. Flew like something's. Had Austin Cindric practice the car. I think Keselowski even said it Saturday. If the race had been on a Saturday, he didn't feel like he could win that, let alone win the event, even race the event. So Cindric maybe could have got his first Cup start. Whatever the case may be, nonetheless, didn't see Austin Cindric at any point. Was on standby. Did not get in the car on Sunday. Keselowski written off, even by myself. I mean, I play this in Ontario. Ottawa, Toronto, well across Ontario. There's a pool that OLG, the Lottery Corporation, runs, and got to pick the winner, highest finish. I wrote Keselowski off, man. I said I ain't picking him, even though at the way this goes, the highest finishing driver is how the pool scored. Keselowski, even if Cindric had started the race and gave way to Cindric, had Cindric finished above whoever the competitor was. I think it was. I don't know, Kyle Larson, I'll say. Who was he? Whoever he was paired with that week, anyhow, he won. So he won the race. Had Cindric been in the car, if it would still been Cindric, and he would have finished ahead. The notch still goes to Keselowski. But anyway, that's just some facts that you don't need to know. So he surpasses Mark Donohue, 60 wins for Penske, all-time wins in motocross motorsports. And it gets you thinking, too, we had this debate last year when Keselowski went on his 3-race winning streak and into the playoffs. And is he the best Penske driver of all time? And then we always talk about the GOATs. Who is those GOATs, And a lot of people don't like that term, the greatest of all time. But Rusty Wallace would come in. He's got the 55 wins. Not all were with Penske, but to me, I would say when you say Team Penske, you're going to think of Rusty Wallace from NASCAR. In IndyCar, Mark Donohue, maybe Elio Castroneves. A lot of great drivers have driven for Penske. Sam Hornish, perhaps, but I think that was more of a NASCAR. I don't think, did he race? It's more of a, he had some time with Penske and IndyCar, but mostly Panther would be where you would remember Sam Hornish. Very good accomplishment. The Hall of Fame debate's going to keep being tossed about for Keselowski for the next couple of years. He's still in the prime. He's in the prime of his career. But I think it could be time that we start thinking about Brad Keselowski as the best Penske driver to ever strap up, put on the helmet, strap in, put on the driver's suit for Roger Penske. And not just NASCAR, but across motorsports in general. So this is a 28th career win for him. He tied with Carl Edwards, Rex White, closing in on 30. 28th all time on the wins list. Pardon me here. Penske and JGR seem to be on the collision course again, picking up where they left off last year. Stuart Haas had a good race this week. So you have those top 3 teams obviously they've set the standard, gold standard, really. All the teams are catching up with them. The almighty Hendrick has really struggled. We'll talk more about their struggles later, but it seems they're setting up for and Penske cars are good. All three led. All three cars were strong. They led at some point in the race combined for 96 laps of the 25. Blaney had the lead for a while. Logano had some time up front. Keselowski. The other two cars had issues with the tires, and that Keselowski did slow up there at the end, and we'll talk about that. But pretty good win for him. And I mean, once he checked out, and again, we won't talk about Hall of Fame debate. We focused on that one episode last season, but it's time to start looking at him as legit contender for the Hall of Fame. I know he has the one championship. It looks to be in championship form here. Keselowski, first win of 2019. So what's next for him? He's a 3-time Las Vegas winner, so he's going to another track here. Last fall, he's the most recent winner there, the playoff race. 14 and 16 spring winner. So lots of momentum for Penske going into this race at Las Vegas on the weekend. If he wins, I mean, since the spring of 2013 the race, he's no finish worse than 7th. 11 career starts for him. ISM coming out, so we'll skip ahead. At ISM, 19 starts, career starts, 0 wins. He's had 6 top 5s. Career best was last fall, where he finished in the runner-up position. 19 top 10s. And then at is he due? I think he could be due for that win at ISM, but he's gonna have to contend with Kevin Harvick, who just very good at that place. But Joey Logano's teammate won there most recently, not long ago. Auto Club, 10 races. I know he won in 2013, sort of an upset win there. 3 top 5s in the 2015 winner, 3 top 5s in the last 4 events there. 1 win, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. So the win here was pretty neat. Standard checker flag in the winner's circle. Yeah, he looked pretty flushed. I mean, he had a pretty rough weekend in Atlanta, Keselowski, but he emerges victorious here. And I'll go back to just a quick note to 2017. The victory celebration in the winner's circle. He had the creepy guy in the back. Look this up on YouTube. Put this in your Google machine. You had the guy in the winner's circle. He's wearing an M&M's racing hat and just sort of creeping around in the back there. I don't think the camera caught him. I think it was social media just blew up at the time when this rather unique individual was creeping Keselowski there in the winner's circle. I don't know who he was or how he got back there, but that was the highlight of that. So no funny ha-ha moments there, but nonetheless, a win for Keselowski, and Penske is trending in the right direction. Had really good cars in the Daytona 500. We're all in contention there till the end. And then Logano had his little dust up with Michael McDowell, who was last place finisher in this race. I don't think Michael didn't expect him to do much in Atlanta, but got him some headlines. Michael McDowell. Let's get in. We're putting him over on this podcast too, are we not? So let's keep going here. Keselowski, I think, is going to have another strong season. I think sort of all the Penske cars last season, for whatever reason, got really hot toward the end of the season there in late summer. We had a run at the playoffs. I know it was disappointing fashion. Keselowski was eliminated at Kansas, but I think if he puts together a season much like he had in 17 or even his championship year in 12, you could put him right up there with the 3 big names from last season, Truex, Kyle Busch, and Kevin Harvick. Keselowski establishing himself as a championship title contender in the early weeks of 2019. Fresh off this win. Vegas, can he make it number 4? Only one other driver's won 4 races at Vegas, Jimmy Johnson. He could use a win, could he not? But Brad Kay can win it this week, would tie him as a 4-time Las Vegas winner. So Martin Truex Jr. here, runner-up finish, career best at Atlanta, career best finish here. Leads 4 laps. I mean, the win eludes him here. He's been after that Atlanta win for a little bit. 5 consecutive finishes in the top 10 at Atlanta. This was his 5th consecutive. He was upset about the result, and in the post race, visibly upset on pit road. When he gets interviewed by Jamie Little from Fox, he buries, absolutely gets the shovel out on Ricky Stenhouse, complaining the lap cars had no respect for the leaders, not pulling out of the way. Heard Stenhouse's side of the story later on another podcast in Sirius XM, where he said that he felt they had faster lap times than Keselowski. Keselowski was slowing down. It was conveyed to him over the radio that Logano and Blaney, his teammates, had issues with the tires on pit road, the right fronts, and there was concern for Keselowski if this was going to also spoil his afternoon. And rightfully so, Stenhouse could be correct that he had faster lap times than Keselowski as laps were winding down. And he made a good point, though, that, you know, Truex was complaining about the cars weren't as fast in dirty air and that these lap cars were holding him up. He wanted the bottom. He feels that Stenhouse should have maybe surrendered, let him go. Stenhouse was battling Chase Elliott to get the lap back. He was 1 lap down, had a caution come out. He wants the free pass. I'm not sure if that wasn't a winning car, but it would have been a lead lap finish. And I see Stenhouse's point. But Keselowski, I mean, Truex Jr., has he become the resident whiner here? You know, he's competing for a position with Chase Elliott. If the caution comes out, they're racing for the be back on the lead lap. Truex Jr., if he clearly had a better car, as he's claiming, had the fast car, faster than Stenhouse, because Stenhouse not a lead lap, wouldn't he just blow right by him? I think he had nothing for Keselowski. This is his way of putting the onus on someone else. I just didn't think he had a strong enough car. So pretty strong finish start out of the gate. I know Daytona was rough for the 19 team. Comes in second place here. It's something to build on. As I said, this team feels pretty much like Furniture Row. It's just as if they're racing with the JGR banner. But to go out there and blame Stenhouse, who is, racing his own race, battling for something else, get back on the lead lap. He's not battling for the win, but he's also got something to battle for. Every point counts. And Stenhouse was after a pretty decent start in 19. So was both Ryan Newman. Both cars in the Roush Fenway stable are competing moderately. They're up there. They're in the top 20, top 15. Truex, I think, is falling into the clutches of the media, where I think he's expected to run up front. He's expected to contend for those wins. He's fancied himself to winning all those successful years with Furniture Row, and here coming up a little bit short, a little bit resentful. I mean, rightfully so. He hasn't won since Kentucky in July. A long drought for him. Feel like he had an opportunity. This win was snatched away from him. I just didn't think he had any for Keselowski. That's my opinion. I saw most of this race. I saw all of this race, actually. I got a chance to watch it as Lady Friend was not around this weekend. Missed her dearly. And I got a chance to watch some of this race in action unfold at Atlanta, the quick full of Honor 500. I don't know. I think Truex, it's a lame comment to make. I think it's in poor taste. And not so long ago, Truex was that guy holding up the lead cars. Let's think back your days with MWR, Earnhardt, Ganassi, DEI. You weren't exactly the strongest competitor out there either. It is what it is. I mean, I think he's going to win a race in the 19 car at some point in the season. I'm just really taken aback by how bitter and upset he was about losing this race, that maybe he was never really a contender. 4 laps? Come on. Were you ever really a factor, or anyone was circling you as the odds-on favorite for the race? I sure as hell wasn't. So tough break for him. Third place for Kurt Busch. Let's move on. He rallies back from 25th place at Daytona. Disappointing for him in the 500. I think the Ganassi team is in a unique position with Chevrolet to be the top Chevrolet team. You know, the comment Kyle Larson made about cheating and Hendrick, and he apologized for that this week about the bet. But all joking aside, I think Ganassi could be the top Chevrolet team. JTG Doherty would say otherwise. They're off to a pretty good start in 2019. But Kurt Busch here, still competitive after all these years. This was a 650th start, as I said, in the post-race. This is an encouraging finish for him and Ganassi. I think he wanted to put together a good race here. And I knew he'd have a good race here. Kurt Busch was someone I had on the radar going into this week. Getting babyface pop. I mean, what he's doing with the veterans and buying the tickets for them at every racetrack and the racetrack, matching his contribution. I think that's pretty cool. At one point I said Kurt was a heel. He was a heel, kind of like his brother. His brother seen as a heel, I guess. And I remember Kurt Busch and his exit with Penske. Everybody, that's well documented. That year he was with Phoenix Racing, James Finch's team, and he got his opportunity to at Redemption with Furniture Row, and then leads to Stuart Haas, and now here with Ganassi, and getting a babyface pop out there. I think Kurt is really over like Rover with the fans. People like him. This is a sign of life for Ganassi. I mean, a strong one like this out of Kurt Busch, the veteran, you bring him in. It gives the organization, who went through a tough 2018, puts a little life into them, just a little jolt of energy. And we'll talk about Kyle Larson in a minute, but third place run is pretty well in contention most of this event. So he's a 3-time Atlanta winner. Doesn't make it 4, but good run for him. And in his 650th career start, as we said, still competitive. And in the race interview with Jamie Little, the pit reporter from Fox, points that out. And it's good to see Kurt running really well with this team. We'll see what he can do in Vegas. I mean, this is home track's number 1 here. We'll bring that up here in a minute. But I think Ganassi is trending in the right direction. So Kyle Larson, let's go to him for a minute. He leads 142 laps. He rallies back to 12th, but just odds were not on his side. Has a good run here. Another slip up, pit road issues. Looked like the best car on the track, like he's going to easily cruise to a win. So you got to limit the errors. I think that's what's really cost this team a year ago, why they didn't win. And this is a key component if you're going to compete with the powerhouses that is JGR, Penske, Stuart Haas in 2019. And I think the ability's there in Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson has every bit of the ability in him, and Kurt Busch, that Ganassi can be the best Chevrolet team. They can compete with these powerhouses, and he's led over 1,300 laps. Just behind the big three, those big three guys, Truex, Harvick, Kyle Busch. And I think it was a statistic within the last season, 2 seasons, whatever it was, he's led that many laps. So Kyle Larson's been anything but good. He's been up there. We talk a lot about the big three, but who would be a big 4th? Who would be a big 5th? You're going to the top 5. It's interchangeable between the 2 Penske drivers, Logano and Keselowski. They've been really strong, consistent, and won championships in the last 10 years. Kyle Larson, you got to throw him in there too. I mean, I don't think for whatever reason Ganassi is not quite at the level yet with their equipment of Penske or JGR or Stuart Haas, but I think they're just missing that whatever it is, that intangible, whatever the heck that could be, to get them in there. There's just something they're missing on. And I think Kyle Larson has a hell of a lot of talent. And this race was evident of that. He can run up front and look like the strongest car on the track, but it's just got to limit these mistakes. And these mistakes that keep mounting, it has an effect on his confidence. And I think that's why we haven't really seen Kyle Larson going into 18. I thought he's predicted to be the champion by many publications, and I think you look at him this year, didn't get quite that notoriety, but I think he's still there. And I think we can't forget about him. I think we still have to put him in that. He's going to be in the playoff. He's going to have an opportunity to run for this championship again. But he's got to string those wins together. And that was absent last season. So Las Vegas, he's going on a good track where the last 2 races in 17, he was a runner-up. 3rd in 18. And a runner-up here in the fall. Pretty good odds for him. If you're going to a place where you gamble and you take chances, well, Vegas is that racetrack for Larson where you put together good finishes that he has to capitalize on that. He's got to convert those runner-up finishes, that 3rd place, into a victory here. And if you're to do that, that's a momentum changer. That also puts a whole other dynamic into this team's strategic plan to be up there, to be the best Chevrolet team, because that's an open spot right now. Who's the best Ford team? It could go back and forth. It's Ganassi or it's Penske or Stewart-Haas. JGR, Toyota teams, they're the dominant Toyota team. But Chevrolet is an open contest. You have JTG Doherty making a strong run at it. The 2 youngsters, Buescher and Preece. Hendrick's just missing something. We'll talk about that later. But Hendrick just looks like they're in rebuild mode. They're missing that factor that made them the top Chevrolet team for a number of years. Ganassi is in position to rise above and be that top Chevrolet team. But they got to convert. They have to capitalize on these top 5s to wins. And if you go and looking ahead for Kyle Larson, ISM, 3 top 5s in the last 5 races. In 16, he was 3rd in the fall. Runner-up in the spring of 17. And in 18, he was 3rd in the fall race. Auto Club, 5 starts there in his career, 1 win, 2017. 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s. A runner-up in 2018. This is his opportunity, I think, Auto Club Speedway. I think Auto Club Speedway, when he won in 17, this is where we're starting to see the coming out party. How good is Kyle Larson? Have to channel some of that 17 energy. See what happens for the rest of 19. But Kyle Larson is someone I think you're going to put on your radar this weekend in Vegas. So Stewart-Haas Racing sort of bounces back. All 4 cars in the top 10 here. Harvick in 4th. Led 45 laps. So every time we're at any track, Harvick is a odds-on favorite to win. He's won just about everywhere. Clint Bowyer, 5th. Roller coaster day for him. He was back and forth. He was far back into the teens and then finishes here 5th. He doesn't have the higher finish than Harvick here, but best Stewart-Haas Racing car, I think, in 2019. We've seen the best out of Clint Bowyer. 10th for Daniel Suarez. This is his first top 10 for Stewart-Haas Racing, so you see some life there for him. A lot of expectation there. We'll see how that unfolds. Eric Almirola from the pole. Battles back, had some issues in the race. Sort of up and down day for him, but comes back, rallies 8th. Good for him. Great finish for Mr. Eric Almirola. And Kyle Busch, we'll go by him. He was 6th place. Scraped the wall there. Bounces back. Rallies for a 6th place run. This was career start 500 for him. And I think the best reaction of the day is the child in the grandstands. And it's commented on by the Fox crew. As soon as Kyle hits the wall there and he heads down pit road and you see him smoking the tires, the child here takes his hat and just bangs it. And he's like, dang, there's his driver. A lot of support, a lot of young Kyle Busch fans in the audience there in Atlanta, and quite popular. I think it has a lot to do with his sponsorship. I'm not going to lie. Huge fan of this sponsorship myself. More on Kyle Busch later on, but 500 career starts. Great accomplishment. I mean, it says a lot about his longevity, and still a fairly young man. I think he's only, at this point in time, Kyle is 33 years old. Still lots of time to make an impact and continue to build his repertoire and his impressive resume already there. We'll talk about that later, but 6th place here. Really good at Atlanta. Had won the race at Atlanta a decade ago. So 52 wins in the Truck Series. Became the all-time wins leader on Saturday night. Good for him. a very decorated career, decorated driver, and 500 career starts for him. But some of the most memorable moments, I think, for him in his 500 career starts, it has to be Bristol 2007 in the spring when he wins in the COT. First win in the car of tomorrow, and highly critical of the car. A member said about he thought the car was junk, was not a fan of the COT design. Not a lot of people were, in all fairness. Kyle Busch wasn't completely off there. He wins that. That's monumental for him. A lot of firsts for Kyle Busch in his career. Puts up a lot of impressive numbers. 2008 Southern 500 winner. IndyCar. I mean, the IndyCar, Indiana Jones car at the time, the IndyCar. Cool paints. One of the coolest paint schemes I remember seeing. That's when the Southern 500 was run in May. The win at Sonoma in June of 2015 comes to mind. This is his first race back from the injuries that kept him out of the car for several months when he was injured at Daytona in the Xfinity event. And his Brickyard wins. I mean, winning in Indianapolis in 15 and 16. Monumental wins for him. And at Homestead, obviously, when he won that race in 2015, captures the championship. And I know a lot of people will snarl and say, well, the playoff system is flawed. Shouldn't have been the champion. Should have been eligible for the playoffs in 2015. But nonetheless, he's a champion. Deservedly so. Had a lot of memorable moments in those 500 career starts. New chapter begins this week at Vegas. 501. But while we're still on him, he's chasing greatness. Right? Well, let's talk about him. Let's just get this portion of that out of the way so we're not talking about him forever. I was going to save that toward the end of this program, but let's talk about it now. So he is closing in on greatness. I don't know. There's going to be much debate about how you look at the record books and how you view it. And Richard Petty's 200 wins. And we're talking about greatest of all time. Does he fit that category? Certainly making a case for it. I know Jeff Gordon. In my era, it's going to be Jeff Gordon. You ask anyone from my era, I was born in 1983, and I grew up watching NASCAR in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then you see if you're of a generational talent, you have that with Jeff Gordon, obviously, who went on to do great things, 4-time champion, Hall of Famer. The wins kept piling on for him. You could say Tony Stewart there if you want, but Kyle Busch, I think, is in the 2000s. He's the cream of the crop. He's that generational talent. Now you could see that. Is it Christopher Bell? Is it Kyle Larson? There's a lot of good young drivers out there. But it's Kyle Busch, for me, at this point in time. He's the best driver that is competing in the Cup Series week after week. And he's 5 wins away from 200. 6 would give him 201. And, Richard Petty's got the 200 in Cup. I don't know if anyone's ever going to touch 200 Cup wins. Kyle Busch, still a fairly young man. But I just don't think he's going to be around to catch that pace. He's at 51 at the moment. I suspect he could be, by the end of this season, we could see him at 55, 57, 58, 60, who knows. But consistently would have to put up those kind of numbers to get even close to the 200. I just can't see that record ever being shattered. But if you're looking at the overall, out of the 3 touring series, that 200, where Richard, and it just goes back to the eras again. Richard Petty's era, no one, a lot of competition. David Pearson, maybe his most fierce competitor. He's winning championships by 800-900 points. If you're looking at an era, at what Jeff Gordon did in his time, I think at this point, Kyle Busch, if he continues to race another 10 years, would put him into his 40s. And a lot of drivers I know are stepping away into their 40s now. They're not staying on like some of the other veterans did at some point into the 50s, 60s, whatever. They're doing other things. I see Kyle finishing at 100 wins, maybe a little above that. But the 200 when it comes to NASCAR overall, he's going to be the all-time wins leader. He's already the all-time wins leader in Xfinity, now in the trucks. But if you calculate all 3 touring series and the amount of victories he's had, it's Kyle Busch is by himself, unchallenged, will not be challenged at all by any capacity, by anybody. It's not feasible at this point. It's not probable. It just really isn't probable. I think you have to look at him, whether, like I said, whether you like him or hate him. And a lot of people don't like him. They think his tactic, he's a heel motherfucker. That's part of the whole point, is that you love to hate the guy, but when he's rolling off those victories, it's still you're witnessing greatness, and you're seeing history unfold. You can't be mad at that. I think Kyle has performed at a high level and has been fortunate to drive really good race cars for Rick Hendrick and also for Joe Gibbs, and has had quite a bit of longevity in his career. As he said, 500 career starts. You're starting to talk about the active drivers, Jimmy Johnson, Ryan Newman, who've had consecutive starts and have been in the sport an awful long time. Kyle Busch is after these guys, and these guys have not even attained some of the greatness he's attained. I know you take away championships. We're not basing this all on the championships. I think if the point system had been the traditional system, you can toss about how many titles would Kyle Busch have won or not won. But when it comes to just pure raw talent and winning events, Kyle Busch is, I don't see anyone really making a run at that or challenging him on that at all. Absolutely not. And still on the topic of him, he re-ups with JGR. I think it was tossed about a couple weeks ago at Daytona. It was in the news that he was in negotiations with JGR, and of course he would be, as they were going to re-sign. It was just a matter of putting pen to paper. Multi-year extension. It's announced on the social media platforms, Twitter. Saw an Instagram post that he had re-upped with JGR. And most high-level competitive drivers, this is probably no terms are disclosed, but we're guessing it's a 3-year deal. M&M Mars has also re-signed with JGR and Kyle Busch to sponsor them in this extension, and has really garnered a lot of attention to the brand. I know M&M Mars has been in NASCAR since '97. Started off with Derek Cope in MB2, Ernie Irvin, Ken Schrader. Then they had their time with Yates, David Gilliland, Elliott Sadler, and Kyle Busch has brought the brand its first championship in 2015, and they won the title. Since they both joined the organization in 2008, 47 career wins, 2015 Series Championship. M&M Mars, who had been a longtime sponsor in the sport, over 10 years at that point, and it pays off for them well over, as I said, in 2015. So all those years of sponsorship, and Kyle Busch brings them the title, 47 career wins. That is absolutely marveled by that, and that's going to be a force to be reckoned with on the track. So it's not, like I said, good news for Kyle and JGR, but maybe not so much for the competition, as Kyle Busch only seems to improve and become a much better race car driver as time flies by. So JTG Doherty, strong start for this team. Revamped. That was a bit, I don't know, I wasn't really sure about Ryan Preece. I said Ryan Preece had a lot of success in the K&N Series, K&N East championship driver. Given an opportunity by Joe Gibbs to race some Xfinity events, limited series, limited amount of races in the series, pulls off 2 wins in 2 years. AJ Allmendinger released in favor of Preece. So JTG Doherty, the youth movement, new alliance with Hendrick, and their cars outran the Hendrick cars. So Hendrick supplying the chassis and engines, and JTG Doherty looked a lot stronger than Hendrick at many points in this race. And Ryan Preece runs in the top 10. His day gets destroyed by an error on pit road. And this is another topic of debate here. So Rick Ware cars are just causing mayhem on pit road in consecutive weeks. So Ryan's coming in to the pit box. He's going to make his pit stop. He looks down at his gauges, and in that split second, he's in the back. He rams on the back of BJ McLeod, who's pulling in. It was probably 5 pit stalls away from Preece. But why did he stop? And this is 2 consecutive weeks, and it's not to bury or demolish Rick Ware Racing. I think these guys are out here looking for exposure, trying to get themselves into the race. I know they're not seen as threats to win anything, obviously, and that's nothing disparaging on Rick Ware Racing, but this is 2 consecutive weeks. You take out good cars, the incident on pit road with Tyler Reddick and Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy rallies back and finishes in the top 10. But this is 2 consecutive weeks. And that's nothing on BJ McLeod. BJ McLeod has been a journeyman, long time in all 3 touring series. They have the desire to compete in the Cup Series. They're there. I mean, they don't think they're going to win anything or they're a threat to win anything. But they have every right to be there. But Ryan Preece was having another solid day, was likely going to finish maybe in the top 5, top 10. And it's just a mistake on his part. But BJ McLeod, come on, if you were 5 pit stalls away, why would you just stop? And it takes Preece out. It takes Preece out, ruins JT Giudiori's day. Come on, man. I think these teams, if they're going to continue to compete every week, it just doesn't look good. It just freak accident, whatever the case is. I'm not here to rip apart Rick Ware Racing, but it just doesn't look good. It's not a good look. 2 consecutive weeks, and you take out quality race cars that are challenging for the top 5 or even the win for that matter. But so it's a good move for JTG Doherty. I think this team already, Brad Doherty told the Fox crew that he felt this team was trending in the right direction. The moves they made in the offseason were going to pay off dividends, and 2 good runs, top 10 last week at Daytona for Preece, and a top 10 for Chris Buescher, finishes 9th. So good run for them. Good start for JTG Doherty. It's a good story to see them. That's the Hendrick Power. It's paying off. They're doing what they have to do. So the youth formula. So they want to turn things around. Go with the youth movement. It's working out for JTG Doherty here. So this is the first time they've had consecutive top 10s in the span of 2 weeks. The last time was in 2014 when the Richmond spring race, where A.J. Allmendinger was still driving the 47 car. I think it was only a single car team then, where Talladega and Richmond, consecutive weeks, top 10 finishes. Good for them. So Roush Fenway, also another team that's trending in the right direction. Stenhouse is on the outside pole, has some issues in the race, but second consecutive top 5 finish for qualifying for him, starting position. Second consecutive top 20 finish. And Newman, 2 consecutive finishes in the top 15. So Roush Fenway's really good finish. And the 6 car. Let's focus on the 6 car for a minute. I know they had Matt Kenseth in there. Had some good runs toward the end of the season, last couple weeks of last season. But Trevor Bayne is pretty well on the sidelines, released in favor of Kenseth. Kenseth's there to try to turn it around, bring some energy to that team. But Newman's doing a pretty good job of that. And I think when Newman signed on there, I think there was that feeling that the finishes would be better. I don't know if Newman's going to win a lot of races, but I think both teams have a legitimate chance of getting into the playoffs this year, Stenhouse and Ryan Newman. And Ryan Newman seems to be a pretty good fit for the 6 car, as I knew he would be when that was announced in September that he was going to transition to this team from RCR. So we got to give a call out to 2 guys this week. David Reagan's one solid 16th place finish for him. He ran really well at Daytona, got caught up in a wreck, makes the most of that. Competitive all day. He was, if you looked at the scoring loop, Reagan and the front row motorsports team were well in the top 20 for most of the day. It's a great finish for David Reagan at his home track. 16th place finish for David Reagan and Front Row Racing, and had a shot to win the 500 with Michael McDowell and Daniel Hemrick also. And I've been quite critical of Hemrick. I thought that he has not won in the Truck Series, has not won in the Xfinity Series, but RCR really thinks that they have found the driver that can build the organization around with Austin Dillon. And in his fourth Cup start, the car was fast. It's the first time in a long time where RCR's had cars that were considerably quick. I think RCR's put a lot of stock in him. Andy Petrie was saying, who's with the organization, that they have a lot of confidence in Hemrick and his ability to be a top-tier driver in Cup. And he runs in the top 5 before getting caught up in issues there on a restart. And he comes home 20th in the end, but very good day for him. He's a top finishing rookie in the race, and Daniel Hemrick has shown a signs of life for RCR, that RCR could be competitive in 2019, their 50th anniversary. Good for Daniel Hemrick. So Daniel Hemrick and David Reagan, call out to them. Really good days, really good finishes, but for Hemrick, maybe the finish doesn't reflect how good the car really was, and he was solidly there in the top. He was going to probably finish in 4th, maybe 5th there. So Hendrick's struggling. Much is going to be made about this. Mediocre runs here. Bowman's 15th, Byron 17th, Johnson 24th. What is going on with Johnson? Running several laps down at the end of this race, just wasn't a factor in a place where he's won before, multiple times. Chase Elliott, high hopes, home track, 19th place. So what's next for this team? They're relying a lot on the youth development. They're going all in with Byron and Bowman. The face of the organization is Chase Elliott. He finishes, he's got to find that 2018 form and fast. Elliott had a solid playoff run, and I thought he was going to be a candidate for the Final Four. And here we are. Johnson, 4-time Vegas winner, hasn't won since 2010. Only 2 top 5 finishes since then. Johnson just looks really out of sync. Something's not right with the 7-time champion. This team, and Kyle Larson, with his comments about them this week, generate some headlines. But Hendrick's not the top Chevrolet team anymore. I mean, that debate, should be no debate that they're just not. They still have pretty good cars at Daytona. They put 2 cars in the front row. But until they start hammering out consistency week after week, and they're not even close to a win here. None of these cars look like at Atlanta they had any shot at winning. Chase Elliott, let's put him in that too. That just didn't look like these cars were very good. Las Vegas, I don't know. We'll see. But Daytona, same idea. They rallied, but didn't look very strong either. They were there, was, like I said, a war of attrition at Daytona for the 500. So it just seems like they were there in position. So was everybody else. But Hendrick has looked really out of sync, and see what happens in the coming weeks for them. But they just do not look solid at all. This team looks very lost and searching for answers somewhere. And Jimmy Johnson, man, I don't know. He's been stalled at 83 wins for a very long time. I don't know when 84 is coming. It's coming, but I'm just not sure exactly when. So the Xfinity Series, we'll touch on this real quickly before we wrap things up here shortly. Christopher Bell, dominant performance. First race win of 2019. Leads 142 laps, all but 21 laps in this race led. So his 9th career win in the Xfinity Series, and only really his 2nd full season. Doesn't even run. Last year was really his first full season, but he's won it every year since he's been here. 9th career win, ties him with Austin Dillon, David Green, former champions of the series, Jimmy Hensley, Eric Jones, the other hot blue chip prospect at one point for JGR, Rick Mass, Kenny Wallace. So he's 9th on that list with these guys. Meteoric rise, I said, only his 43rd career start, and first full season was in 18, and he's already got the 9 wins behind him. 2017 Truck Champion, definitely Cup ready. Lots of raw talent. I know a lot of people want to see him move up the Cup, and he is definitely Cup ready. You want to see him and Kyle Larson continue that rivalry and bring that at the Cup level and see how that plays out. But where does he go from here? I think 19, he's the odds-on favorite to win this championship. I mean, how good is he? I think we're going to have that debate for many years to come here. Just how good is Christopher Bell? And I know he is good enough to race in the Cup Series at this point. And like I said, there was a plan at one point to put him in the 95 car. But for whatever reason or another, JGR just didn't think that was going to be a good idea. As I think the plan here is to run the Xfinity Series this season, maybe win the championship, possibly come back next year, do some Cup races this year, but I really don't know what the plan is. But he is definitely Cup ready, and I don't know where he goes from here. Where does he drive from here? And the re-signing of Kyle Busch and in the 18 car, so we know he's not going anywhere. Eric Jones could be bounced for him. I don't know. I can't see it with Truex Jr. just arrived. He ain't going anywhere. He's got a full sponsorship behind him. Denny Hamlin, I mean, it seems like the logical choice to put Christopher Bell in the 11. We'll just see how it happens, but I don't know. Maybe, like I said, they work with another team, put him in a satellite car, or they just lose him altogether. He goes to race for somebody else. I don't know, but I think at this rate, if he continues this kind of success in this series, you can't keep him out of Cup for too long. And another year in the Xfinity Series, it's just he could pile on the wins, pad his stats, but I think in the end of it all, you have to give way to the fact that you can't hold him up in the Xfinity Series for a very long time when he has all of the tools to be successful in Cup Series and to run up front. So Cole Custer, another driver on the rise, second place run. He's his fourth run-up finish since Darlington last September. And at only 21, he's in the same position. The debate will rage on for a while. Is he Cup ready, or does he spend a few more years in the Xfinity Series, try to chase the championship, pretty well could have won the championship last year, was in prime position for that. So Stewart-Haas versus JGR, looks like that's where the battle is going to be, not only on the Cup side, but in the Xfinity side for 2019. Cole Custer, I don't think he's quite at the level of Christopher Bell, but if he continues to put together strong runs week after week in Xfinity, he's going to put himself in that picture. And again, when you look at who could he replace, Harvick's getting up there. I don't know if Harvick is still, to me, the cornerstone of Stewart-Haas racing at this point. Clint Boyer, he's getting up there. They just signed in Almirola last season, Suarez this year, so that when Stewart-Haas Racing is in that position for their youth movement to look a little younger, Cole Custer's obviously, without question, going to be looked at as a driver to step into one of those cars, either to be at the 4 or the 14. But I think at this juncture and this point in time, he's a good fit for the Xfinity Series. He's going to be in a neck-and-neck battle with Christopher Bell, Justin Allgaier, maybe for the championship this season. But Cole Custer, I think, is another driver that, given some time, he's not quite Cup ready yet. As I said, he had run some races for Rick Ware last season, and the finishes weren't there, and I think that's a good move to keep him. As I said, there was debate whether he would be moved into the 41 to replace Kurt Busch even this season, and I think Stewart-Haas Racing made the right choice to keep him in the Xfinity Series for a little while longer. So continues to develop and can compete at a high level once he arrives at the Cup Series. So you got to give the just due here. We talked about Michael Annett last week and his win with JR Motorsports at Daytona. When guys get their just due, and Jeffrey Earnhardt, he's the grandson of the legendary Dale Earnhardt Sr., son of Kerry Earnhardt, who didn't quite have the career that Dale Sr. did, and I guess you could put Dale Jr. in that category as well. But it's good to see Jeffrey Earnhardt gets his career best here at Atlanta. 6th place, JGR. Was announced last year that he'd be running a limited amount of races for JGR, and with Extreme Concepts, this is one of the sponsors, and the IK9 supporting, leading the way. This is a tremendous opportunity for Jeffrey Earnhardt with JGR, and he's almost 30 years old. He's been around a while. Never really had his opportunity to off the name, Earnhardt. You see the name. I think he just wants to be more than just known as the grandson of Dale Earnhardt and Dale Jr.'s nephew. He has an opportunity to make a name for himself here, and I think this is a good move for JGR. As you see, similar to the move with Ryan Preece, and JGR's helped other drivers develop and to find opportunity somewhere else. And I'm not sure, like I said, again, with the roster so crowded in Cup now, and even in the Xfinity Series, if there's two options here for Jeffrey, is see how the rest of this limited schedule plays out for the rest of the year for him. He's going to get some Cup starts, I think, Extreme Concepts, and some help from JGR to run some Cup races this year. I don't know, like I said, can he race full time for JGR next year in the Cup Series, in the Xfinity Series, or this leads to him with a satellite team with JGR providing resources to another Cup team and allows him to return to Cup at some point. But outside pole at Daytona, he finished 15th there, led 29 laps. Career high for him. He's only led 7 laps from 2009 to that race at Daytona in last 2 weeks ago. That'd be now. So like I said, at 30 years old, not exactly a prospect, but is still on the heritage is behind him, the pedigree. This will help him in his quest for a quality Cup ride, I believe, at some point. So there's just that debate. Is he in the full-time for them in 20 in Xfinity, or is he continue this for a couple years? As I said, he is 30 years old. Time is exactly not on his side in that respect, but it's really good to see him get his just due, and I think he expressed that at the 6th place at Atlanta was great. Humbled by it, but I think there's still more in the tank, and he felt that desire that he knows that this is just a taste of success. You want more of that, and I think JGR helping that cause, and you're going to see a lot more to Jeffrey Earnhardt in 2019. But he could carry on that Earnhardt legacy. That, and I know it's good to see that name in racing. We just love to see the legends and the people from the years gone by and see them there and their legacy live on. And I said, with Dale Jr. gone, it's Jeffrey Earnhardt's the only real active Earnhardt in NASCAR at this time. And the deal with Extreme, like I said, this could be a satellite Cup team. Extreme Concepts and some help from JGR. Who knows what this could lead to for him. But 75 career starts in Cup, and with Go Fast, BK, Joe Fox, Starcom, the 96 car. And again, none of those teams quite at the level of a Joe Gibbs Racing. So it's really nice to see Jeffrey Earnhardt relishing this opportunity and making the most of it. And we're going to see more of him, as Kyle Busch will be in the 18 car at Las Vegas. We will not see Jeffrey this weekend, but we'll see him a few more times before the season is through. We'll have to wave the white flag here on this episode, but first we'll give you the top 5 drivers I think you need to watch out for at Las Vegas. So we'll obviously, some of the storylines going into Vegas. Brad Keselowski won 3 of the last 6 races there, including last fall in the playoffs. So Harvick and Truex Jr. won the other 3. So the two of the big 3 make up for the other 3. BK could join, as I said, Jimmy Johnson is the only 4-time Las Vegas winner if you somehow were able to pull out the victory on Sunday afternoon. And as Ford has won 5 of the last 10 races at Las Vegas. And 2009, Kyle Busch won the race, his only Vegas wins of the hometown driver there. Kurt Busch also, hometown track, has never won there. And 1999, 20 years ago, Jeff Burton wins. That was the first of 2 wins for him, back-to-back, as he would win also in 2000. And that would be 3 consecutive for Roush Fenway at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So the 5 drivers to watch here: Kyle Larson, obviously, as you talked to him, in search of his first win at Las Vegas. 6 starts, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 2 runner-up finishes in the last 3 years. He's led only 24 laps, and all of those were in the race in the fall of 2018. So he's due. He seems like he has the right formula there at Vegas, and it seems to be quite comfortable racing there. And given the success he's had this season, the really strong run in Atlanta, you know that he's bound to turn it around, and he's a really wants to get back in the winner's circle. And Ganassi has not won a race at Vegas since 2002. And Kurt Busch, who's never won at his home track, he's had an 18 career starts. His best finish, third in 2005, and no finish better than ninth since that race. So keep an eye on Chip Ganassi Racing as they're on their quest for victory for both Kurt Busch and Kyle Larson. And like I said, they continue to establish themselves as the top Chevrolet team in the Cup Series. And Ryan Blaney, I think, is another driver to watch. He's the pole sitter for 2018 spring race. 2 consecutive top 5 finishes in 2000, both races in 18. 4 consecutive top 10 finish. And Penske cars fast at Atlanta. All of them, like I said, they led laps at some point in the race. Ryan Blaney is one of those drivers, I think, when you're thinking about Las Vegas, you're not really thinking about Blaney, but I think he's a driver that you can't sleep on and has had a tremendous amount of success in his career at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Martin Truex Jr., fresh off a runner-up finish at Atlanta. He's the 2017 spring winner, 4 top 5 finishes in the last 5 races. And this win would establish his place at JGR, would shatter expectations. I said he expected to do well in this car, but I really thought they were going to struggle out of the gate. Not so much. Didn't have a great Daytona, but ran really well at Atlanta. Runner-up finish. Truex Jr. should be a driver to keep your eye on this week. And also the other 2 Penske cars are going to round out the 5 drivers I think you got to keep an eye on. Logano, 11 career starts, no wins here, 4 top 5, 7 top 10s. But since the spring 2014 race, he's at 4 top 5 finishes in the last 6 races. And this runner-up in the spring race of 2016, that was a Penske 1-2 finish that year. And Keselowski, as we've documented, since his 2013 spring race, he's got 3 wins, 5 top 5s in the last 7 races. And in that span he hasn't finished no worse than 7th. So Keselowski is another solid competitor, gets around here really extremely well. And I think this is a driver that could put himself with Jimmy Johnson there. 4 wins at Las Vegas. And finally, it's not the 5 drivers to watch, but a driver, if you look at anyone through the stats, that's going to run, this be 23 races at Las Vegas. There's 1 driver. He hasn't been in all 23, all 22 events previous to this 23rd. But I think he's due. If anyone driver's due to have a good finish at Vegas, who has not really done that well there, is Clint Bowyer. So in the 14 car, he's had great stats here. Never won. He's just runner-up finish as his best finish in the spring of 2009. So no top 5 since then, and he's been the best of the Stewart-Haas racing cars in 2019. I think he's finally putting it together. This is his 3rd year in the car. Made the playoff last year, had a decent season in 2017. So he's running in the top 5 at Daytona. Gets caught up in that wreck with Michael McDowell at the end there. 5th at Atlanta. And the 14 car has won at Las Vegas in 2002. But the boss himself, Tony Stewart. So if there's anyone that's due to have a good finish, that's never really run that well at Las Vegas, I think the driver to keep your eye on is Clint Bowyer. So that's going to wrap up this edition of the Super Fantastic Above Average Racing Spectacular. I hope you enjoyed listening this week and continue to listen. And we'll be back next week as we'll go through the fallout from Las Vegas and also recap the week's events if there's any news items. And also 3, as I said, we have 3 races this week again, triple header again, Trucks, Xfinity, and the Cup Series. So we'll see the fallout from that. Lots to report, hopefully, and maybe we'll be seeing a new winner this year, maybe first-time winner. Maybe Keselowski will win his 4th. Maybe Kyle Busch will win. Maybe Kurt Busch will win. I don't know. We'll see how it all unfolds on Sunday afternoon. But until next week, I will see you.